A teacher that's inspired me and that I continue to think about is my second grade teacher, Mrs. Longo.
Was Dr. Julie Higgins.
Donald Bogle. He was an African American studies teacher when I was in college.
Rick Malmstrom. I was a student in high school and he taught my favorite class, which was history.
Mr. Truman. He was my geometry teacher, sophomore year of high school.
This was Mr. Ryan. He was my AP English teacher in high school.
His name was Mr. Burkhart. He taught, I had him for AP European history, and he also was my softball coach.
And he was someone who taught me not only obviously about history, but about how to write. And I always knew that if you could communicate, whether that was writing or by public speaking, you would be successful in life, and I know that he really instilled that value within me.
And he was just the best. It was actually really funny because on my Facebook memories last week, there was a post from my senior year of high school, and my status was, Mr. Ryan is the best teacher on earth. So it was true then, still true now.
And I think the reason why he had such an impact on me was because he had that like strict but kind of like lovable personality. He didn't really mess around. He had high expectations, but then he also had a very like caring side to him, and he really took pride in his students and pride in me, I felt like, which was really something that made me feel good.
He was dynamic, he was funny, he was quirky. He also, I think the bigger thing outside of like his teaching was, I think it was one of those moments when I like decided who I was or owned who I was. So he was my teacher, but also I would say a bit of a guide and a mentor.
She was just an extra special person and somebody that took the time outside of the classroom to show that she really cared about her students. And I remember a specific picture that I have at my parents' house of her and I at one of my softball games, where she took the time out of her very busy life to come and watch me, and that meant a lot and clearly stuck with me throughout all the years.
So with him, he would give like an assignment, and then I would do it kind of my own way and turn it in, and he'd be like, that's amazing, so creative. And I loved it because it really just made me feel like I just felt encouraged, and I felt like my ideas were good ones and that there weren't any limits on what I could do.
He was great. He was fantastic. I am not good at math. It's my weakest point. I was a strong student in every subject but math. It didn't make sense in my head, and he took the time to help me understand it. You know, he paid attention to me and the fact that I was struggling. He made it okay to make mistakes.
Recognizing that everything you see is not always, that's not the whole picture. It's often incomplete, and sometimes what you see, hear, or read, or listen to is happening for a reason. I think that's what came out of my time with him in class.
And she seemed to always like put herself in her students' shoes and like get to know them better, and get to know where they're coming from, like their strengths, weaknesses. You know, she was just like super conformative to her students, and that's something that I like to do in my work now.
I think a lot about her and how she cared for her students and try to carry that through in my life, personally and professionally, and just taking the extra time to show people that I care, whether it is about their professional work or what's happening in their personal lives. I think that really makes a difference.
So if I could say thank you to Mr. Malmstrom, what would that sound like? And what would I say specifically?
I would just thank him for being that support system, both in school, in the classroom, and outside of the classroom. I feel like whenever I saw him in the hallways, he always said hello and smiled and was happy to see me. And it was just nice to have his presence, even when I wasn't in his class. Nice to have his presence in school and know that if I needed anything, I could rely on him. So I think that was really important to me.
I appreciate that you made a subject that otherwise would probably make me cry. You made it fun. You helped me understand it. You didn't make me feel stupid for not knowing it. You broke it down for me. And that meant something, and it put in me a sense of empowerment, so that when I reach other difficult obstacles, both in college and then now in the professional world, I approach them with patience as opposed to frustration. And I think I learned that from your class.
It would just be to thank him for being patient with me, for being honest with me, for really pushing me as a student, and just because he liked me as a student and as a person.
So I would say thank you so much for believing in me and giving me the space to be myself.
Professor Bogle, you challenged me in mostly, I don't want to say gentle, but like appropriate ways, but you also intellectually challenged me in a more aggressive way, which I appreciate.
Dr. Higgins, you changed my life from my sophomore year of college until now. All of the lessons, guidance, advice that you gave me back in college, I still hold it dear today. And, thank you.